Good morning, everybody. I'm here with Colleen.
Hello.
And today our guest is Mary Riposo. Hi, Mary. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hi, thanks.
And Mary is, she's a Reiki Master Teacher, but one of the reasons that we really wanted to have you on is because she does so much work around creating and different things around Reiki business. She has a podcast, her social media is excellent. So definitely go and find that if you are anybody, but especially if you are a practitioner or new to a business or even have a business, you always share so many resources that are super helpful. So we are so excited to have you here today for that. And I'm sure who knows where this conversation will go. It always goes in different tributaries. But I know that we are here to talk about that a lot today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, kind of how we always like to start is just start with your story. How did you come to Reiki, or how did Reiki find you? Is usually the better question. And we'll go from there.
Well, I think you're exactly right in terms of how did Reiki find me, because just like so many people that I've talked to, Reiki came to me at a time in my life when I really needed it. Um, I was working as a mental health counselor in a hospital setting. And my job was super stressful. And I think I hadn't had a day off in like 3 years. And so I was just always working with super difficult client situations and things like that. And at this particular point in time, my office was being renovated. So, building was a little bit older, they needed to do some renovations, and we needed to work during that time in our space. And, I had always been sensitive, but at this point in time, I just became really, really sick. The longer I was there, carpeting and painting and dust and all kinds of like toxic materials. And so I'm trying to work through this and in a super stressful, high stress situation. And I just was feeling sicker and sicker. I was really tired. I started to have respiratory symptoms, and I just kept working through it until I couldn't. I wasn't listening enough, and I knew that it would be difficult if I, just took some time off preemptively. So I ended up really getting sick, and I was out of work for at least a month. And when I was at home trying to figure out what the heck to do about this, I saw my doctor. I ended up seeing specialists, allergists, and all kinds of things. And everything that my doctors tried really was kind of making me worse. Now, full transparency, I definitely don't think that Western medicine is a bad thing. I think it's important. I think we need it. So I'm not the type of person that would just be like, I'm just not going to go to a doctor and I'm just going to do alternative stuff. But, my allergy testing made me worse. The allergy treatment made me worse. The medications, the antibiotics made me worse. Nothing seemed to be helping. And so I was basically unable to get out of bed for a while. I was just super, super sick. And I started to get really, just really fatigued, really run down. I didn't really know what to call it, but I had chronic fatigue and things like that. I had pneumonia. And I remember when I got the call from my work, basically at that point in time, they said to me, do you have any idea about when you can come back? And I didn't. I just didn't even know how I was going to get out of this. And they said, we are not going to be able to hold your position for you. Now, they couldn't really let me go completely, But they said, we'll figure it out when you can come back, let us know. But basically they weren't going to hold anything for me. And so I was really like at my lowest at that point in time. And that's when I found Reiki. When I just started to really realize I'm not going back to work anytime soon. I'm just going to try to figure out how to get well. One of the things that I ended up doing was when I could get out and walk and things like that, I went to a holistic fair. And again, it was something that I was just like so many of my clients, what could it hurt? There might be something there. I have no idea. I'm kind of desperate for something. And I remember seeing a booth as I was kind of walking by, seeing a booth that said Reiki, and a woman who had just a little straight back chair, right? And she was doing Reiki sessions, um, try it Reiki sessions for like a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And, I know I walked by her, I kind of looked and I was like, I wonder what that is. I'm looking at crystals, I'm looking at books, I'm looking at singing bowls and things like that, and kind of being really in awe of all of these things and how do they work and what the heck is this all about. And something kind of made me go back to the Reiki booth. And so I said, sure, I'll try anything at this point. So I remember sitting down in the chair, and, if you get the picture, this is in a big hotel ballroom with lots of people walking around and lots of noise and, talking and music and people playing singing bowls and things like that. So it was busy. It wasn't like super relaxing or quiet place. And, so I remember sitting there and closing my eyes, and she never touched me. She did hands off. And I remember feeling something that was really kind of blissful. And to me, with my limited understanding of any of this, I felt like something was filling me from the outside, like kind of coming into me and kind of filling me up. And I felt like that was the most energy that I had felt, or the most well I had felt in a long time. And so I kind of asked her, questions afterwards. What the heck is this? What's it all about? I really kind of needed to know. And it really spurred me in terms of like, maybe this is like really the only thing that I've actually felt like kind of has done something for me. And I felt like I wanted to learn more and to do more with it. So I ended up receiving Reiki sessions after that. And so all of the things that I did in terms of the medical stuff, I found that Reiki really just supported all of that. And it also helped me to discern, just receiving Reiki sessions helped me to get more in touch with my body and helped me to get more in touch with my inner knowing to discern which of these things were being helpful and which of them were really not really helping me very much, or actually harming me in certain ways because I couldn't tolerate them. And so once I did that for, I'm going to say almost the good part of a year, I really felt so much better, but I just had regular Reiki sessions. And I remember my Reiki practitioner saying to me, you could learn Reiki so that you could support yourself in between sessions. You could actually, kind of take your wellness into your own hands, and you could, maybe even extend our sessions so that you don't come once a week anymore. And of course, I didn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? Just like so many people that I talk to, no, you must have a gift. You must have been born like this. And of course, I could never do what you do. So I felt like this big differential. And she was very down to earth. She was very grounded. And she basically said, no, you can do this. If you want to, here's the next time you can take this level 1 class. And so I took that leap, even though I doubted myself completely. I ended up taking Reiki training, and it really did help me to become more empowered, to just do better self-care, and it helped me physically for sure. I really started to rebuild my health, but in so many other ways, it helped me to kind of spark my spiritual development. It helped me to, um, you know, make better decisions for myself and for what was good for me. So in so many ways that's kind of when it came in, was when I was at my lowest. And I know, Colleen, you've talked about your story too, and how, it's interesting when things come in for you, and it's always in divine timing. And I've seen this over and over with my clients too. But I thought it was really interesting to look back on where exactly did it come in, and how has that kind of informed what I've done with it since then.
And
Yeah.
then you opened a practice and started your own business.
Yeah, well, of course, I had no intention of doing anything else with this, right? Except for feeling better, right? From this illness that I had. So I ended up having, chronic fatigue and food allergies and regular environmental allergies. And yeah, so many of us can really, relate to that. And so many people that I've talked to have said the same thing. And so I only wanted it for self care. I would have never even thought about doing anything else with it. And again, I'm somebody I was kind of used to doing one on one with people because I was a psychotherapist, but, um, you know, not really wanting to do anything else with Reiki. But I ended up having such a good, response to it that I was able to go back to work. And people were asking me, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, you look great. I remember you've been out of work for a really long time." And I was able to go back. They wanted to know what I was doing, and they wanted to try it. So, of course, I'm sending people, "You can go to my Reiki practitioner." And they were like, "Well, can't you do it for me?" Right? So that kind of just, spurred me on to, well, I learned level one, but it's really just for self care. It's just for me. It wasn't really something that I was thinking about it doing. But I did kind of give people little mini sessions to show them what it was like, and suggested that they go to my person. And really, none of them wanted to do that. They just wanted to have a little, more sessions with me. And so, of course, it started just informally. It started with people at work. It started with, my family and things like that. And I was just offering people, the benefit of what I know. And then people really started saying, "Well, I want to pay you for this. This has been amazing. I never knew anything like this was out there." And they're benefiting from it, and they wanted to pay me. And of course, that brought up a lot for me, like, no, I don't want to get paid. I don't do this for a living. And you know uh, all of those things that come up for people around money and payment and things like that. Um, but after a while, I started to think, you know maybe this is something that I could do. Like, I really enjoy it. I enjoy what it's done for me. It's transformed my life. And maybe I could offer this to people. So I started to do it part time, like on weekends, off of, work time. And I thought, yeah, there's a possibility, naively, because I had no business skills. I had no idea what it would even take to do anything like this. Um, and what I didn't say was, when I went back to work, it was interesting because I fell right back into the same um, things that I was doing before, overworking, not paying attention. So I really kind of just jumped right back into that. But with Reiki and with self-care that, was helping me through Reiki, I started to realize, wow, this is really not working for me. And I started to see my patterns a little bit more. And that's kind of when I realized maybe this super stressful, situation that I'm working in with all of the pressure and all of the stuff that I have to deal with every single day, maybe that's not the best thing for me. Maybe I could do something different that would be less stress, that would be more, beneficial, more self care. And so I decided maybe I'll do this part time, and that's what I decided to do. I asked to work less hours. And, I went in and I said, listen, I had this history of like being sick and not being able to work, and I don't want to get there again. And maybe I can work less hours. And they allowed me to do that. And that's when I started to do kind of have a side hustle of Reiki, on weekends and evenings. And, like I said, I really did not have any business skills. And I did face quite a few challenges when I decided, like, I'm going to take this leap. But when I was thinking about doing it, I went and I got a tarot reading, and I remember the woman saying to me, um, you know, she pulled a card and she said, "Yep," she said, "leap and the net will appear. You just need to take that leap. This is the right thing for you. I know you're thinking about some kind of change in your life, but I think you just need to, like, jump into this." And I thought, oh my gosh, I really don't, not really sure that this is right for me. Again, still thinking that, someone who's comparing myself, to my practitioner and thinking, oh my gosh, she's has everything going for her. She is successful. She does this for a living. She does this full time and all of that kind of thing. And thinking, yeah, I don't really know if I'm up to this. I don't really know if I'm going to be successful with this. But I decided to jump into it. I jumped into it with one foot, right? I did it part time, but I did face a lot of challenges when I did. And again, one of them was no business skills whatsoever, right? So I had always worked for someone and I didn't have anyone to guide me really. Um, Once I started to kind of jump into it, I realized how much I didn't know, right? I realized that there were, lots of things that you probably need to know as far as business before you just jump in and start to have a business. But I really learned from, doing and learn from the ground up. And there were a few Reiki people in my area at this time. And none of them really wanted to help me in terms of guidance, support, tips, anything. It really kind of wasn't that. This is going back more than 20 years. So it really wasn't popular. People didn't really know about it very much, but also the people that did, they kind of wanted to hold that for being special, being different, and kind of cornering the market of Reiki. So it really wasn't like, welcoming me with open arms. They probably thought she has no idea what she's doing. She's probably going to fail in 5 minutes anyway. So I didn't really get any of that support. But it also really helped me to just kind of decide, am I really going to do this? And if I am, I really need to figure it out. All right. So I did have to figure a lot of it out on my own. And I realized that I could get business skills from the Small Business Administration, from books, from all kinds of things. And even with that, that wasn't the hard part. the hard part was the mindset stuff. All the stuff that came up for me in terms of visibility, not wanting to really be like, showing my face and saying, I'm somebody who's doing Reiki. For one thing, I couldn't explain what it was. I really didn't have the language to fully explain what Reiki was. I worked for a hospital, and the hospital was very much against something that wasn't scientifically proven. So for me to come out of the Reiki closet and say, listen, I have been, this therapist in the community for a long time, working in a medical facility, but now I'm going to say that I'm doing this woo-woo stuff. It really kind of took a lot for me to just come out and say that I was doing that. And I did get a lot of haters. I got a lot of pushback. Um, I got a lot of pushback from family as well as colleagues. So people that were in my, in the hospital that I worked with, they kind of thought that I had gone off the deep end. They were like, we don't know what's going on with her, but she's really, she's really not with it anymore. And then when I was really excited about practicing, my family thought I must have joined a cult, and they were pretty sure they needed to do an intervention with me. So it was kind of like they were whispering behind my back, what has she gotten into? What is this? And all this kind of thing. So I had a lot to overcome in terms of being visible. I wanted to kind of shrink back and say, can I just do this? It's really great stuff, but not let anyone know about it. That was kind of hard. But marketing myself, I didn't want to do that in any way. That was just like, coming from, when you think about what I had been doing, psychotherapy, you don't ever market yourself in that way. You just, you're there, you're presentable, you're professional, and you receive your paycheck at the end of the month or whatever it is. You don't ask for money, you don't market yourself, you don't promote yourself, and all of that kind of thing. But also I was isolated, and I kept overworking. So even when I started to do Reiki for, pay, I really felt like I needed to do more than that. I had to do everything for people, right? I had to give them more time than they asked for. I need to give them, uh, more of everything, right? Not just Reiki, but adding other skills in. So I just start learning different things. So I found that I really kind of was digging myself into that same hole that I had before. So there's a lot of mindset issues that I really needed to work through. And luckily, having counseling skills, I could help myself in a lot of ways, see what my patterns were, and go, oh my gosh, you're doing this. So let's kind of just pull back and see, what did you really need to do? And I know Colleen and Robyn, you guys always say, simple, practical, right? Do it your way. But I think I was just overdoing it. So I was living a double life for a long time. When I was still working, I was, the corporate kind of person. And then when I would leave work and I would do my Reiki sessions, and these were for, friends and colleagues and stuff like that. Some of them really were okay with it. But I hid it, right? So I was kind of living a double life, which was very inauthentic. And I was doing it for a while, and I started to get really this bubbling up under the surface of being just very uncomfortable with the way I was living. And as I was practicing self Reiki and doing all of the Reiki practices, it really hit home to me. Reiki was showing me you're living inauthentically. I was starting to understand what my true self was. I was starting to understand what my authentic self wanted. And it wasn't hiding from both sides. going into a Reiki session and kind of pushing away that, that I work, as a psychotherapist, going into my psychotherapy practice and pushing away that I do any of the Reiki. So I knew I just couldn't live that way. And I really started to really practice Reiki in a deeper way to help kind of live in a more authentic way, live in a more a way that was just fully myself. And so I had to live in accordance with that. So I decided I'm going to move out of working in psychotherapy, and I'm just going to go full time with Reiki. And so that's what I ended up doing. And my husband and I, luckily, he is a yoga teacher, trainer, and we decided that we would open a wellness center. So I ended up leaving my job and really jumping in, leaping, and hoping that the net would appear. And we opened a wellness center so that it wasn't just me practicing Reiki and hoping that that would fully support me, because it wouldn't have at that point in time. But we were able to do more of a wellness center, and that was a long time ago now. And we had a wellness center. We just recently let go of our brick and mortar business. And since the pandemic, I've gone online totally, like a lot of people have done. But yeah, there were a lot of challenges, a lot of challenges. I know I'm going on and on about it,
Oh,
but
we want you to.
Yeah.
I feel like your story is so many people's story.
That's what I was going to say.
Is that what you were going to say? It's so many people's story. And, what brings you into it. And I love that same thing where and the same for myself, when I started in mine was just my hairstylist saying, hey, you should have a soul retrieval. And then I also did have a year of chronic fatigue. I got a virus in my eye that just knocked me out. And, but I'm always amazed how many people come to Reiki in a similar way that you did. Somewhere they either hear the word, and sometimes they end up taking a class just from having heard the word somewhere. Or like you say, that Reiki called you back to her booth. And then that whole thing of like, well, I'll just do this with family and friends. And Reiki says, well, actually, there's a little bit different plan for you. And I really believe when I say Reiki says that, I really believe it's our inner self tapping us to remember this is where you're going. But then also I'm fascinated because I think there's also the big piece for so many people that have not been self-employed before, and what that means and what that takes. And then also the story about dealing with the obstacles, both from, all the kind of practical material obstacles of, money, building business, and can it support you financially and those things, but also that coming out of the Reiki closet piece of it and managing your family life, social life, colleague life. And, we certainly went through all of that too. I had several family members. One just distanced himself, but the other actually went no contact, and close family members. And so doing that, and then Robyn, of course, was raised in these traditions, but small town in Oregon, conservative high school, and dealing with it from that perspective, and then college and everything. I'll let her talk about her story, but I just feel like your story is so many people's story in their way, of course, but so many similarities, and how fascinating it is that we find Reiki and Reiki finds us. and then guides us in this way. Because same thing, I actually had a really successful business. I was a fiber artist. It did not occur to me that I was looking for something different. In fact, at the very beginning, I used to think, I don't want this to be a business. I just want to do it for family and friends. I don't want to charge money. And also, just like you said, people were uncomfortable not with me not charging money. And then I had to get over my own issues around that because I realized I was imposing it on them, and my discomfort with charging them money made it their responsibility. And that's when the switch happened. And then what I discovered is once people could pay me, that's when my business started to grow, because now they felt like, we always talk about that equal exchange, but people need that equal exchange, not just me. They need to feel like they're not imposing on us and imposing on our time. And so when that exchange is there, that provides that ability for them.
Absolutely. When we think about back to Usui's time and, the parable and the talk about having an equal exchange, there's definitely something to that. And just like you, I had such a hard time asking for money, putting a price on what I did. I went through all of the, mental stuff that we do about saying, well, Reiki is free, so why should we, and who am I to charge and who am I to think, and I think a lot of it has to do with self-worth and, um, putting a price on what we do and thinking that it has to do with, that we're thinking highly of ourselves and all of that. And it is hard, but it is so true. If somebody has done that with me and said, "Oh, I'll give you this service and but it's free. I'm not going to charge you anything." And I feel like it's so valuable. I've received so much from it that I want to give back. And they say, "Oh, no, no, no." It does put you in a weird position. Like, of course you want to do something. So you find a different way. You're like, well, maybe I'll make something for them, or maybe I'll do something. And you have to start thinking about it. And instead, it would be so much easier if there was just an easy, equal exchange and you felt so comfortable with it. But it took me a while to get around to that. I kind of fought it and resisted it and was in the discomfort of it for a long, long time. And I remember, just like you're saying, Colleen, at the point where I felt like I could charge, basically, I was charging what my nervous system could handle. Right? Because after a while, people are telling me, you should charge this and you should charge this. And it seemed very high for what I was comfortable with. And I thought I could never do that. So I started with um, charging what my nervous system could handle, where if I said the number, I wouldn't like cringe and get really scared and not be able to say, the word. So I did that. And that's what I recommend a lot of times to my clients too, to my mentoring clients, to charge what you feel comfortable with, because you can always change it. But if, once you start doing that, you can start, your business is going to start to take off. It's going to benefit. And then what could you do with those funds, even if you're not using them to for yourself? Could you donate money? Could you support other causes? Could you, buy more equipment for your own business so that you can help more people? So many things that you can do with it, that you don't have to think of it as, I'm taking in this money and it means that I'm greedy, or that, that I'm mercenary or something like that.
The other part of it, Mary, that you were saying is that as you were building your business, you had to have a foot in both worlds. You had to support yourself along with being, starting and growing this Reiki business. Also, you had to you had this brick and mortar with your husband and had that business together as well. And if you didn't charge, none of those things would have happened. You couldn't support yourself. You couldn't have done it. You would have had to. We have bills to pay. Un- Unfortunately, we have taxes. We live in a society. Well, I don't want to say completely unfortunately, but you know what I mean. Like we
Mhm.
live in a society where we do have to exchange that energy for the things that we need in this world. And if you didn't charge, you can't support yourself. And so you wouldn't have been able to have a full-time practice and help the people that you would like to help and the amount of people that you can help and grow this modality that is so beneficial for so many people. I too have had significant health issues that Reiki has helped me through. Same as you, I'm supportive of Western medicine, but I needed Reiki to help me find other solutions that helped me through it all, and so many people can relate to that. So there's that aspect of it, and also I always like to tell people too that none of us that are Reiki practitioners are out here first of all to you know it's probably not realistic that we're going to become billionaires, know, in this field. I don't want to put limitations on it, but it's probably not realistic, and also that so many people get into this modality because it's helped them, and they want to help other people. It's one of the beautiful qualities of this is that people 99% of the time aren't going into Reiki thinking, I know I'm going to become a Reiki practitioner and it's going to make me rich. It's not really that kind of field. It is more of a heart centered practice. It's more of a heart centered industry, which is one of the most incredible things about it. And so you're not going to become this uber wealthy person that then doesn't share resources with other people, which I think is some of the money issues that we experience here in this culture, especially the type of people that this attracts. Like we're usually pretty community oriented people. And and so that's another thing that I think is important to remind ourselves of, like, that is an external kind of culturally created viewpoint of money that isn't that realistic in this industry. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to support ourselves and, hopefully live comfortably. We're trying to support ourselves and live comfortable lives and help people. And I think that that's another place that we can kind of get tripped up as people opening a business, and that money aspect that we can have a hard time with.
Yeah. Well, and on that subject, there's a couple things. Um, I know for myself, when I was working with the spirit of my Reiki business years ago and asking, what is my heart intention for this? And I was surprised because I thought it would always be about animal Reiki and helping the animals. And actually, what showed up was that I would help Reiki become so mainstream that children would grow up with it being part of their wellness practices. Their parents would take them for Reiki sessions, but also so that they could grow up and think, I want to be a professional Reiki practitioner. And they could think of it that it could support them financially and support their families while they got to, work in this way. And so going through my own process of that, because at the time I was like, really? That's that's why I'm what I'm doing. And now, of course, 25 years later, I can see those results and how Reiki led that way. But the same thing, I had to, in order to be able to do as much Reiki as I was compelled to do, It had to become a business, and I had to sell my other business that was very successful. And so, because I'm not born into wealth, and we are a two-income family, um, with my husband too, that it did have to financially support me. And so I did have to do a lot of it's interesting because my other business, I had no problem thinking in terms of how do I make more money with this business.
Mhm.
With Reiki, that was a mindset that I had to heal myself because it felt like, is that why I'm doing it? And then I find out I still do lots of free Reiki. So there's no problem with the idea that I'm just, being selfish and thinking that, oh, now I will make money off of everything. But the other thing that has really come to my awareness with it all, in understanding more about the history of Reiki, and one of the places that I'm just thrilled with is Justin Stein's new book, about Mrs. Takata, and he goes back into Usui's history with the business aspect of Reiki and Hayashi's business aspect of Reiki, even before he talks about Mrs. Takata. But they very intentionally attracted a more elite clientele, which is theoretically why Reiki was able to make it through Japan's time frame of trying to determine what was a valid, um, healing modality, because many of them were being disallowed at that time. But because it was, working with the people in the military, it was working with people who had a lot of credibility in their society, it also allowed Reiki to continue. And then Mrs. Takata, of course, going through what she went through, trying to make Reiki work through, being a Japanese woman in Hawaii in, during the war, and then after the war, for her, that was part of her reasoning for developing Reiki as a practice and as a paid business practice, was to build its credibility. And then one of the pieces I just read, and I really need to pull this out so I always have I'm able to cite the pages in the book. But one of the things that Justin wrote, where the idea for not charging money for Reiki came from, was when Dr. Hayashi was teaching in Hawaii. He actually was there on a tourist visa, and he wasn't allowed to make money for teaching Reiki. It was like, that's where that came in, and then continued, as it was passed on with that idea. And as much as anything, I think it's an important topic to talk about, to support people who want to get into a Reiki business, or maybe they're on that fence, just like all of us have been, like, oh, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? That it is like Robin called it, it's your heart intention. It's a heart-based business, and you will still, it can support you financially so you can live your life, and you can provide more care for more people, and you can operate from your heart, because that is what we do. And it is helpful to be financially supported unless somebody is coming into it, um, already financially, uh, s- you know able to support themselves without it. But even at that, you still have that other piece where people are uncomfortable doing everything for free. They really do want to provide it. In fact, the very first time I raised my rates, same thing, super uncomfortable raising my rates. I can't tell you how many of my clients said, well, it is about time you did that. Good for you. I was shocked.
And
So,
they're happy to pay it because they know that what they're receiving is worth that.
yes. Well, the same thing, I was talking about, I have a new haircut. Of course, I know what my hairstylist is going to charge. I know how long it's going to take. I know what she's going to do and what her services are. It's transparent. It's on the wall. There's my rates. When I go to my acupuncturist, that's same thing. When, I mean, and one of the things that I know people talk about is in many of the spiritual traditions and healers of indigenous people, it's more of a barter system, of course. However, they are supported by that barter system. They have their needs met. Everything is provided, their food, their homes, their housing, their comfort is all cared for through that barter system. And so it's still an exchange.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's so true. And I think one of the other sticking points sometimes for people is that they think of that business is a certain thing, like that it has to be like, you know, you're opening Coca-Cola or something like that. Like it's a serious big business. And there are so many ways that business can look, right? And just the way that you two say, Reiki your way, that you practice Reiki your way. I always say your Reiki business your way, because your business can be just as unique as you are. It doesn't have to look a certain way. It doesn't have to be done a certain way. But back to your point, Colleen, um, whatever you do, having it be structured to some degree so that, when you say you're doing a 60-minute session, you're doing a 60-minute session. You're not doing a 3-hour session, so that people can count on the way that you work and the way that you interact with them, and that you're transparent, and that your pricing is up there, and that your, time limits are up there. And, what you do is, at least visible or transparent to people and what they can expect. But it can still be your flavor of how you do it. And if you want to do it 2 days a week, or if you want to do it full time, or if you want to do it, within your pediatric practice, or if you want to do it as an animal Reiki practitioner, all those different ways that it can be. It's really important, I think, for people to think about their why they want to have a practice, and what their lifestyle is like. Do they like to work with groups? Do they like to, work one-on-one? Do you like to be more remote? Do you like to just be a product-based business? Do you want to be, teaching classes only, but not doing sessions, or just doing sessions? So many different ways we could work within the practice of Reiki and make it our own. And I think just having, when I work with mentoring clients, just kind of opening their awareness to that is like super important, because I think we all have this kind of like, should, and the way it should look, and I'm going to have to change, and I'm going to have to be this business owner that means something different than what I am, and maybe I won't be able to step up to that. Maybe I'll fail, or maybe I'll succeed, and that's even more scary sometimes. So many things that come up in our head that, I really love the fact that my life has gone in the way that it has, because now when I work with people, I have the psychology background. I have the background of like that I had to work through all this stuff myself. And then I, learn business things. And so just the stuff that I'm doing now in terms of working with mentoring clients around opening their own practice, whatever that looks like. I just really feel so much gratitude that I have all those things behind me that I can pull from to be able to support them, and not just giving them, well, here's all of the business information you need, because that's not enough. When people, you just give them information and you realize that, oh my gosh, resistance is coming up and fear is coming up and all kinds of things are coming up in our head and our emotions. And sometimes we just need to work through that and realize that, fear is going to come up, and we can support it with Reiki practice, with all the Reiki practices that we do, but also with just somebody to be able to listen and guide you through and to hold space for you to work through some of that so that you can get to wherever you're going to need to get to on your own and make it just your own so that it works perfectly. I mean, I know people that, do Reiki on their porch in person on 2 nights a week, and that's what their practice is. And it's really great because they still get so much meaning, so much benefit. They feel like they're living their purpose. And then there are other people who are teaching classes and doing sessions and products and creating books and creating all kinds of things, and they want it to be the totality of what they do, and they're getting so much from it. And both of those are really legitimate and perfect. So I just love the fact that you can look at it in a bigger way, and that we've been able to get there from these like misconceptions of Hayashi didn't charge, so we shouldn't charge, or anything that's spiritual is doesn't associate with money, and the two can never meet. So just to like break through some of those mindset issues is like huge. And Reiki just supports us through the whole thing.
So, Mary, you've listed a few of definitely I would say, the mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of starting a business, and maybe even like you've talked about some of your own, which I think so many people can relate to and have to work through and continually have to work through. Honestly, you get to a place and it's that spiral and it can come back around for different reasons, all different things. And you do have to continually work through it. With it all, I will say too, I haven't talked to one person that has regretted it once they're down the line, especially. I mean, I know some people can get into it and be like, oh, owning a business is maybe not for me, or it was harder than I expected. But for those that have, spent those that time on that, I think so many of us just love what we do, and so many of us come from so many different backgrounds, and in comparison to what we did before. But my original question was going to be like, what are some of the things that you have seen, not only for yourself but the people that you mentor, as far as roadblocks or challenges that they can face, kind of from a physical sense, you know what I mean? Like, not
Mhm.
just the mental aspects.
With the business part?
Yeah, like the business part. Like, is it marketing? Is it location? Is it, name? Is it some of those kinds of things? And maybe even how you overcame them, or some advice on how people can overcome them.
Yeah. Um, that's such a great question. A lot of my clients come to me because they don't know where to start altogether. They're like, I have this feeling of I'd love to help people. I have this practice now. I've learned the skills, and I don't have anybody that, I can practice on. And I feel like, or I just have, my family, and I want to maybe do it in a bigger way, but they're just afraid to put themselves out there to even know where to start, right? Because it just seems overwhelming and all of that. So those are people that need, um, just the basics of how would you start a business? You know, how do you make sure that you're doing things legally rather than just kind of winging it, right? Because they don't want to get in trouble either for doing something. So a lot of them are just in the very beginning stages. They kind of need all of it, and they just need it in a step-by-step fashion so that they're not overwhelmed. Like, break it down to a simpler kind of, what do I do first? And when I do this, what are the things to keep in mind? You know, those types of things. Like, when I'm naming my business, should I, how should I do it so that I don't, if I need to like change down the road, am I going to want to keep that? Those types of things. Um, but once they start, so some of the people have already started doing Reiki, and taking money for it or whatever. They've started, and they're doing it very part-time. And a lot of those people are about, how do I get clients? Because, just like me, I totally can relate to this, and I can pretty much relate to everything any of my clients have come to me with, because I've been through it all. But a lot of them are like, I so excited about learning Reiki, and now, I've offered it to my cousin comes and my aunt comes, and I give them sessions, and my children, and, my whatever, my family and friends. And they pretty much, those are the people that they have. So they think like, okay, I have, 5, 6 clients a week. I should now be able to just open myself up and I will just get more. But they have no idea how to market, and they don't want to either. That visibility piece is like stopping them. So they think they're successful, but basically they're successful because the people that they already know are coming. So how did they go to that next level of opening it up and getting people who, don't know them particularly coming in? So they want clients, and then they also want to be safe because they're terrified if people that don't know them are going to come and they think, oh my gosh, I don't know them. Do I want to be in close proximity with these people? Do I want to touch them? Do I physically feel comfortable touching someone I don't know? Do I feel safe letting them into my space, whether it's my home or something like that? Because a lot of people start and they do it out of their home. And, how do I make sure that somebody coming into my home is not going to, one, maybe steal from me, two, harm me in some way? All of the things go through your head sometimes, especially since most of my clients are women, right? And either, a lot of them are women who live alone. And so they start out like in, their a space within their home even, so you have to come. Yeah.
Yeah.
So some of that is just very basic stuff about like, how do I get more people? But, what do I do when I get those people? How do I screen them? How do I make sure that I'm going to be safe? How do I put, how do I have my discernment? How do I, do all of those kinds of things? And so those are pretty tough for people. So we talk about, how do you do this in a way that can have some guide rails, some guardrails even, so that you can have a little bit of a screening. Maybe you can talk to them first. Maybe if you have a weird, feeling, maybe you don't schedule them. And even if somebody comes into your space and you feel like you just feel very uncomfortable with them, I often say to people, have a plan B, have someone that you can text or someone you can call or somebody that, you can check in with on your phone, even if no one else is in the home. You can even say to the person coming in, I have to check with my husband who's in the next room before I start my session. Those types of things. Have a plan B so that you feel really comfortable. And if you don't, make an excuse to not do the session. I'm suddenly not feeling well. I'm sorry, I'm going to need to reschedule you. And don't apologize. If you really feel uncomfortable and you feel like you can't be put in a situation where, you feel weird with somebody, you have to be able to have physical safety too. So there's a lot of that comes up with people. I always feel bad when I see people who started a Reiki professional practice and then quit because they just got stuck, because they got, they didn't get a whole bunch of clients right away. They thought as soon as they put themselves on Facebook and they said they were going to be practicing, they thought they would get tons of clients. So they've already quit their job and they've decided that they're doing this full time, and all of a sudden people are not coming in. I always say, do it slow. And once you start to have clients and you're making money and you can support the next step, then go to the next step. Like for me, it was about, cutting back on my hours at work till I was working 2 days a week and the rest of it was fully Reiki. And then I dropped the 2 days a week. Because I was getting insurance with that job too, so you have to think about all those things, Colleen, like you were saying, you have to be able to, run your family and run your life too. So just like anything else, I feel bad when people have started it with these ideas that, if you build it, they will come. All of a sudden, you don't have to do anything, but people will just be knocking down your door. With any career, any job, people are not going to just be knocking down your door no matter what you're doing. You have to show them that you're out there. You have to show them what you're doing, and how it could benefit them, and maybe, show some testimonials and all kinds of things and be visible. So I always feel bad for people that had an idea that it would blow up, and it doesn't, because, you have to put some work into it. And then they've quit. So luckily, some of those people do come back around and say, it didn't work for me when I was doing this. And I'm kind of like now going back to, working for someone else. But I still want to do this. How can I do it differently? And then we can look at changing mindset and doing it in a step-by-step fashion so that you're building it as you go, rather than just taking that leap. Like the tarot reader said to me, just take a leap and everything will be fine. I learned that doesn't really happen in life. And so I like to be able to just guide people through each step of it with support, and be able to help them to just work through any of those little things. Some people do have business skills and they just need the rest of it. Some people don't have any of it, and they just need to have the piece by piece thing and just support them along the way. I love it when people are able to just, start out and you can just come back and say, so how did that go? And like, what could you do differently next time to make it even better? And now what do you need to put in place? And once that solidifies, look at what you have. Would you want to stop here and just keep this going? Do you want to expand? When is it time to expand? All of those kinds of things. There are lots of different, and everyone's unique, like you guys know. Releasing those the way it should look, right? I think that's really important. Just going back to your Reiki business your way. If you have kids that are, school age and you want the summer to just be with them and you don't want to worry about your business stuff, could you, maybe not even do sessions during the summer, but maybe you have an ebook, or maybe you have a product or something that you could have some money coming in during that time. But tell people, I do my work with you during this time, and then I have these 6 weeks off or these 8 weeks off or whatever it is, and I'm coming back at this time. No one, You can do that. You can do it. I mean, you couldn't do it if you were a barber shop. You couldn't just be like, well, I'm closing down my building. But you can do it. You can do so many different things and still make it work, and do it to the point where I always go back to listening to what your nervous system is doing. If it's freaking you out and you're not able to, be in alignment, don't do it that way. Do it in a way that works for you. And just having a little bit of help giving people permission to do that is so, it's just, it opens that up. It makes them feel more comfortable to the point where they're like, oh, I never really knew. I thought it would have to be, like this, or I thought it would have to be so much bigger or so much scarier, but I'm actually doing it. And and it's helping people. And that's all that really counts. So I don't know if that answers your question totally, but there's a lot that comes up.
Yeah, go ahead, Colleen.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's also some of the practicalities of actual business practices.
Yeah.
And I know a couple of years ago, I was somewhere and they did a panel with Reiki practitioners, and somebody said, you know, what do I need to do to start a business? And the common answer was, well, just let Reiki show you what to do. And I wanted to raise my hand because I was in the audience and say, learn business practices. And how do you learn those business practices? And so, like you mentioned, the Small Business Association, going to, community colleges. For me, I do so much. I learn so much on YouTube.
Mhm.
Like I go down rabbit holes with YouTube all the time. I may not always follow through with the rabbit holes I follow. So, for instance, some of the marketing things, I'll watch all of Gary Vee's marketing things on YouTube and I get all inspired and I call Robin and I'm like, oh, and then this is what Gary said today. And, he'll say things like, you need to be posting on social media at least 5 times a day. And it's like, I like you say, that's where those fears come in. Like,
Mhm.
first of all, how and what, and oh my gosh, now that visibility issue pops up. And it's funny because we are visible all the time, but in that arena now I'm intimidated. But it's where that choice comes in. And I think starting off with, just the simplicity, like you say, of having a vision and a practicality about what you can actually do. And for me, what was really helpful when I was starting was to look at my calendar and actually put the times that I work on my calendar. That was huge because originally I would talk to a person and we'd try to figure out, well, you're available now, I'm available then. No, we can't do it now. And when I learned to put my work hours on my own personal calendar, that was a huge step because originally it was maybe a couple days a week. And, now, like it's almost hard to not do 7 days a week. Um, and truthfully, the reason for that is because I love it so much. It's like, well, then what can I do tomorrow? I don't have any clients scheduled. I don't have any classes. I could I could write, so and there's another one. How do I learn to write?
Mhm.
How, some of those, although that, people don't have to do that to have a business. But then I know, the practicality of what's my business name? What's my and I will tell everybody with business names, make it simple, make it something people can spell. And actually, your business name is about what is meaningful to the people who will come to you more than it is meaningful to you. So, having like my original business name was The Color of Reiki. Seems really simple, but it looked like the color Oh Freaky on print. And in addition, people would go, now what was what was it again? And there was a disconnect. Also, then your email address needs to be simple. That's when somebody came to me, a colleague, when I still had my other business, because I did exactly what you talked about, was getting the business established before I sold the other one. But somebody a colleague in my other business came up to me and said, I channeled your business name last night. It's Reiki Lifestyle. And that was back when lifestyle was kind of a brand new term. Oprah had just started using it. It's like, oh, that's it. And I was uncomfortable with it because it sounded too professional. Then I was like, oh, now I'm like, I really sound legit. Oh, no. And super uncomfortable. But I think some of those very practical, simple business skills is the other piece of it. And they can be fun. That's a big piece of it, is I think a lot of times people feel like, well, I don't know what they are. I'm not going to like them, or I don't like them. But if you can put them into the creativity that is possible with it, it can be really fun. Like, what colors do I want to use for my website? What words do I want to say that is meaningful to the people I'm speaking to? How do I convey who I am? And you can ask Reiki. That's where Reiki does come in, is to help you like express those business practices, in a real way. So anyway, I want to go back to, oh,
I
Robyn.
just wanted to add
Okay.
really quickly on the infinite amount of tools that we have now on the internet, right? You
Mhm.
have Canva to be able to do your logo, and there's Fiverr where you can hire people to help you. There's so many, like you were saying, Colleen, with YouTube. There's so many, and then let's not get started on chat and how much that can help, and different AI tools. There's so many different tools on the internet too now that can help you. It is a whole different landscape as far as all of the availability to start out for a relatively low cost too. And social media is free to start.
Mhm.
So there's all of those things that's different than it used to be.
I,
Yeah,
I
there's
just
so much.
I just want to add one bit because it cracks me up looking back. As you were talking about that, Robyn, I was thinking about when I was first starting out, and of course, none of these resources
Exactly.
online were available. And I remember going to Powell's Bookstore, which is a huge bookstore in Portland, Oregon, going to Powell's Bookstore and buying books on clip art. And we would have to, do you remember that, Mary? We would have to
Mhm.
clip it out, paste it on a paper, do all the cutting and pasting, and then maybe we could print it, because I wasn't artistic. And anyway,
Well, that is a huge difference. It used to be that you would have to pay, and eventually you get to a point where it's helpful to invest, in people who do that professionally.
yes.
But you used to have to basically do that unless you could paint and draw and do typography and things like that yourself. That was something that you used to have to pay for, and now we have either free or very low cost options for those kinds of aspects of business.
Oh my gosh. Back in the day, I remember having to code my own web pages.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember having to learn to code.
Yep.
And I think about like how much things have changed.
Mhm.
And yeah, Robyn, there are so many things that a lot of times my mentoring clients are they can do a lot of it. And Colleen, like you're saying, they can express their own creativity through all of these things, but they may need a little bit of guidance in terms of, you know, what are some options that I should maybe, because there's so much to like explore. There's so many things that you could Should I learn ChatGPT? Should I learn Canva? How should I do it? Sometimes they just need that guidance. And all of my sessions, just going back to what you said, Colleen, all of my sessions are always about that differential between how do we make your business kind of structured in certain ways so that you have those basic business skills and things down, but are able to express yourself creatively through it. Like, how your sessions can be really creative and intuitive, but staying to your time frame or, that type of thing. So that because so many people that I see are so resistant to any structure. They're like, no, 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 I just want to be intuitive. I just want to let everything flow. But if your sessions are 10 minutes or 3 hours, people are not going to be able to, like you said, when you go to your hairdresser, you know how she works and you know how much it costs and you know how long you're going to be there and things like that. And you're not going to have, surprises. And for Reiki, if we're helping people to reduce stress, we want them to be able to count on certain things and then to be able to surrender to the energy flow. So yeah, it really is. I think it's really good to be able to have the business systems in place, all of those systems that you really need, you know, pricing and how do you take payment and how do you schedule, like you were talking about. Do you have to go back and forth or do you have a scheduling system? These are really simple things that you can get in place that will make your life so much easier. And then pick your colors and pick your logo and create through that way. And I think that's where people that I see they get really excited because they think, okay, now I do have this kind of down. I don't have to worry about using all this time to like play phone tag with someone or email back and forth 15 times. And then the person is like so frustrated, they're not going to follow up. They're going to be like, forget it, it's too much work. Because we're so used to, we're not used to writing a check or bringing cash or anything like that. But so many times a client will say to me, oh, I don't want to take credit cards, but credit cards are the most convenient thing for people. They're used to paying online, paying quickly, tap to pay. And if you can get around that, but I think maybe sometimes it feels to them like, oh, that means I have a real business or something. It's getting real now, kind of thing. Yeah, there's so much that comes up around all of this stuff. And just one more thing. I totally relate to what you said, Colleen, about, people will say, just, put it out to Reiki, put it out to the universe, that type of thing. I so strongly encourage people that are in the situation of like wanting to create a practice or grow their business or something like that, to not just get advice from their spirit guides, to not just put it out to Reiki, to not just do that, but yes, to learn business skills, to get a mentor, to get a coach, to get a guide, to just talk to someone else that's doing it. To go to YouTube, to go to a book, to go to the internet or something like that, to actually get real life business advice and real life help. That's where, bringing it into the world of action is going to really take you where you want to go so that you can help people, so that you can really live your purpose rather than hoping that if you meditate on it long enough, it's going to happen. So I think you're both right, so right on with those comments.
Well, here's the thing. You have a spiritual business, you have an energy healing business. Trust me, they're going to be intertwined. By having structure that doesn't leave the intuition and the flow, that actually it is about weaving them within one another, and there's a lot of beauty to that. And by having the structure, it also allows you to be in that intuition and that flow. It's a part of it. And when you have a spiritual business, they're not separate from each other. They're not mutually exclusive. Like you get to still have that spiritual, intuitive, meditative side of yourself. It's not possible to separate the two. It's not it that doesn't leave you. And so that's the other thing to just remember about it, that this structure allows you to do this all day, every day. So, um, well, this has just been amazing, Mary. I know that we could continue talking forever, so we'll have to have you back and go deeper into more of these things as well, because Colleen and I could talk about it all day too. It's definitely a subject that we're passionate about. We know you help so many people, and we love to help people on this. How can people find you? I know you have some resources that people can easily,
Your
uh,
book.
yeah, I was gonna say your book, people that easily can, get right away from you and have some of these resources, and then they can, of course, also work with you too.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to go to my website. It's infinitelightcenter.com. And there's a page on there that shows all the free things that you can do to just kind of get started, and learn from me and work with me and all that kind of thing for free. And then also, do you want me to say anything about what's coming up?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure, go for it.
So there are two summits coming up. I know you guys know about this, and they're both in November. One is the Reiki Raise Global Summit that I'm going to be on that starts on 11/11, and then there's the Reiki Business Summit, and I'm going to be talking about visibility on that one. And I believe that one's on the 22nd of November that I'm going to be talking, but it's for several days. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, and
Yeah.
what about your personal mentoring? Because,
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, talk
absolutely.
about that just a little bit and how
Yeah,
people.
so work with I work with clients all the time. Of course, I do Reiki sessions, healing sessions, and teach classes. But more and more, I'm doing Reiki mentoring, Reiki coaching, and it's really for anyone who wants to. Some of it's about business, a lot of it's about business. If you are thinking about maybe jumping into business in any way or growing your business, making your business better, going to the next level, but also just being coached on, how to practice, going deeper into your practice, or thinking about, wanting to teach, or, making your practice more professional. I do a lot, like a big part of my mission is about giving people the tools they need to do their Reiki or healing work in the world. So I have a lot of products and things like that and services around just supporting people. And what do you need so that you can do this? Because I don't want you to stop because you don't know how to create forms or know how to create marketing materials or things like that. So just supporting people around that is mainly what I do.
And you actually help them with those kinds of details.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
I think that's what people commonly need.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
we don't
and
want
say
people
the
to
name
get
of your
stuck.
book and your podcast.
So, the Grow Your Reiki Business is my book, and it is on Amazon, and you can read it on any device. It's not a hard copy book, so you can just click on it on Amazon. And Reiki Coach on Call is my podcast, and you can see that anywhere where you get your podcasts.
I'm going to say the name of your podcast again, Reiki Coach on Call.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they can find you there too.
Thank you.
And then infinitelightcenter.com.
Mhm.
Mary, thank you so much. We definitely have to have you back because there's more. It's amazing that we've been together already for a couple of hours. There's just so much more we can talk about. So we definitely have to have you back. So we'll pop some stuff in an email and schedule some new dates.
Thank you
So
so much. Thanks,
uh,
Robyn.
thank
Thank
you
you all
so
so much,
much.
and of course, thank you to the listeners. All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.